After a few hours, you were appointed the Chief Executive Officer of the Porsche in United Kingdom.
I was recognized as being successful in my role, but I just wanted that new challenge. About 2 weeks after I took over, I fired half the business.
What was the biggest business challenge in your life?
It became the biggest automotive data company in the world.
What does being an inspiring leader mean to you?
Create a culture where people want to give their best.
You climbed to the top of some mountain. You hiked 2 poles already. Yes, so you crossed the Atlantic Ocean. Why do you choose, let's say, such extreme and dangerous activities?
Well, if you've walked to the North Pole, you might as well walk to the South Pole, mightn't you? Give yourself permission to imagine that you could become world champions.
How we as Ukrainians can support ourselves mentally and physically in this very, very difficult situation, in the long-term path to the victory?
You know, the whole world pretty much is behind you. Slavo Ukraine.
Greetings to everyone. Okay, so we have a very, very special guest today. Actually, Kevin, you are our first international guest within the Octalk format. Okay, hi.
Hello. Hello.
Kevin has a very, I will say, special career path. Okay, so from ex-CEO of the biggest automotive businesses like Porsche, BMW, Lamborghini in UK, to a big entrepreneur with a very, very special focus on extreme sport. It was a quote in one of your interviews that I really liked. It was a kind of, name. Extreme businessman. I think it's a very fascinating characteristic of what you are doing. And my first question is very personal. Once upon a time, you decided to shift from a very comfortable chair, respectable chair of the automotive executive with extremely good track of record. So I'm absolutely sure that you have huge reputational capital at this point of time. Okay, you decided to shift to the entrepreneurship. So why?
The short answer is because I was getting bored. I had been at BMW by then for 4 or 5 years, and we'd had a lot of success and it was all going very well. And before then I'd been at Porsche and I'm one of those people, I get restless. I actually need a fresh challenge. And the internet was happening, and I could see that the internet was going to change the world. And I couldn't get BMW to react quickly enough. So I thought, fine, I'll go and do it myself. And so I started looking for opportunities, and I was fortunate enough to be approached by George Soros' company. And they came to me, they phoned me up and they said, hey, we've got this automotive business, which we're going to move from America to Europe, and we'd like you to run it. And I went to meet them in the USA, and we talked about what the business could be, and I got very excited. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. And it was a huge decision, really. I was 40 years old. I was recognized as being successful in my role, but I just wanted that new challenge, and it was time to go. So I went.
Very good story, but it's about risk. It's about challenge at the end. So you were confident that you will be able to come back into the corporate world in case if you will fail.
So I did a deal with my wife. And I said to her, look, I'm going to go and do this. And she was completely supportive. And I said, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to give it 3 years. And if I can't make it work as an entrepreneur within 3 years, I'll go back into industry somewhere. I'll find a job somewhere. And that was the deal.
Yeah.
And 3 years in, the business was growing very strongly, and I was enjoying it. And so I didn't go back, never went back.
Okay, I got it. Okay, a little bit history. 30 plus year ago, as far as you were 30 plus, yes, and it was 30 years ago, okay, you entered into the Porsche board meeting room, quite sure that you will be fired. After few hours, you were appointed the chief executive officer of the Porsche in United Kingdom, yes. So
Correct.
and it was a great success story. So you turned around a business that was close to the bankruptcy, to the top business in the country. What is your general approach to the turnaround? So you had something in mind, so it was developed on the way. So what is your general approach? So what are the steps that you are using to turn around the business?
Sure. Well, yes, you're right. I walked into that meeting. It was the Porsche and the Piech family, and they'd fired the whole board. And I wasn't on the board, and I walked in expecting to be fired. And I thought, well, I'll tell you what I really think. And so instead of a 10-minute exit interview, I stood and told them how I thought they could fix the business. And they listened to me for 4 hours. And then they invited me to leave the room, which I did. And 15 minutes later, they invited me back in and said, right, we like the plan. You're the new managing director. Make it happen. So suddenly I've got this business which, we were at the bottom of the market. We were out of 32 brands in the marketplace. We were number 32 in customer satisfaction. We were the bottom. We had 3 years unsold new car inventory, and we'd lost 90% of our sales revenue per annum. So we were in a terrible mess. So where do you start? Well, you start by bringing the team together. So I brought the senior team together and we talked about what we could do. What should we do? And after a lot of discussion, we realized that customer service, the customer experience, was where we needed to focus our efforts. People needed to get a special experience. You spend a lot of money on a Porsche. You come in and spend $100,000, $200,000. It's got to be really special, and we were not making it special. So everything that we designed and developed was around transforming the customer experience. But to do that, we had to transform the company. And I had to make some very tough decisions. About 2 weeks after I took over, I fired half the business because we couldn't afford them. And this was dreadful because they were my friends. I'd worked with these people for 5 years. I knew them. I knew their families. And I had to make a decision to take out 50%. So first we cut the costs, which was a dreadfully emotional day. But then we felt that we were responsible to show to these people who'd left that we could do something to make them proud as well. And we transformed the business. We looked at every part of that company. We took it apart. We put it back together again. We simplified it. We went from 13 operating divisions to 5. I appointed young people who had some fresh ideas into senior posts. It was about bringing through some fresh ideas. We went out and looked at other companies who were successful in providing world-class customer service, and we learned from them. We went and looked how they did it, what were their processes, how did they train their staff, what did they invest in, what was it that made it special for the customer, and we brought those ideas back in and we Porscheized them. We made them like Porsche. But then we looked at our product, and we didn't have any new products at that time. But we decided we could niche our product. We can create a 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive 911. We can create a sports version. We can create a lightweight. So we started to change the way that we presented the cars, and we got very specific about approaching different audiences. We would approach people with very specific product types. But I think the biggest thing we did was make the brand open again. I spoke to, I say, about 200 journalists a year. And the point was we'd become reclusive. We were away from the market. We considered ourselves this very special brand, and therefore you come and speak to us. We don't speak to you. And I turned that around. And so I would call journalists in remote parts of the country, and I would say, hey, hi, it's Kevin Gaskell from Porsche here. And they'd say, who? Kevin Gaskell. Oh, aren't you the new managing director? Yeah, that's me. Right. Why are you calling me? Well, I want to know, when was the last time you drove a 911? Well, I've never driven a 911. Right. So how would you like to drive one? We will deliver it to you, but here's the deal. You can keep it for a week. You can write your report about the car, but then you have to drive it back to head office and you have to interview me. And you interview me, you get two stories. So for a journalist, it's wonderful. They get to drive the car,
Yeah.
then they get access to me. And we just became human again.
Yeah.
And so they would come in. I would make them a cup of tea, not my secretary. I'd make them a cup of tea. And we'd let them realize we're actually human. And it transformed the business.
During these years, what was the biggest, let's say, challenge Everest for you in your business career? So it Porsche, BMW, or something else, because you have, let's say, plenty. I know you have right now 5 businesses. I know you had 7 at some point of time. So what was the biggest business challenge in your life?
I think Porsche was the biggest business challenge because I didn't know what I was doing. I was making it up as I went along. I was learning on the job.
When you entered into the room with a board members, Porsche, what did you tell? I know it's true, so you tell about the problems, but did you express the vision, or you shared with them your operational approach, how you will probably fix it?
I talked to them about repositioning the brand. Okay. I talked to them about rebuilding the relationship with the dealer network and with the customer, because those relationships had broken. I talked to them about operational changes. I talked to them about cost cutting. So I covered really what my big picture was, but I didn't have any great detail. And honestly, even then, I was making it up as I went along, because I was just very passionate.
Coming back to the challenge.
Yeah, Porsche was the biggest challenge because that's where I learned my trade, and I did that job for 6 years. And that's where I developed my approach. That's where I developed the process that I've used. I used at BMW, and it was a big success. And then I took it into my own business, and that was a big success. I think the next biggest challenge was a data business. I went to Switzerland to run a data business that had been bought by a private equity firm. And they asked me to go and look at it for some months. And I ended up staying 8 years. But we grew that business into 31 countries. It became the biggest automotive data company in the world. But it's very challenging because that was the first time that I'd been exposed to working in another country with a language that I spoke very little of. It was German. I was in Zurich. But also building businesses throughout the world and learning the local cultures and going out and spending a lot of time traveling and getting to meet people in 31 countries all over the world, and realizing how we had to adapt our business to suit their market. So for me, it was a great learning experience.
It is one kind of big difference between automotive industry, where you used to work, and your own businesses, because in automotive, to be honest, you were less in charge of the product. Product was given. Yes, your turning out was very much based on a culture of the business, on the relationship marketing, on brand marketing, yes, so on approach to the market. Okay. But with this data business, you were in charge for the product.
Sure, you were in charge of everything. It wasn't that easy to bring a new product to market. I mean, we did have a very substantial degree of influence both at Porsche and BMW. We influenced the cars, the design and the technical specification, engine size, this, that, and the other. We had a big impact on that. And you see today the M style that BMW have. We had a lot of impact on creating that. But it's true, we did not decide we were going to have a new 4 Series. That was not us. But in the data business, and in every business I've run since, we as a team are responsible for all of it. So part of my journey was realizing just how critical a smooth new product development process is. I'm working in a business at the moment where we thought we'd done very well because we launched 3 new products in Q1 this year. And we were very proud of ourselves. Our dealers couldn't handle 3 new products. It was too much for them. And they are excited, but they said, hey guys, next time, can you please do 1 and then do another one and then do another one?
You just overestimated the ability to process 3 products in the same time, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. So, I've been doing this a long time, but I still learn.
You wrote the book, Inspired Leadership. What does being an inspired leader mean to you?
It's about being a leader who can create a culture where people want to give their best, where people want to come in and make a difference, where people feel that they are part of an extraordinary organization and they are respected for their part. So everything that I try to do in business is about creating a culture where people feel valued, where their ideas are brought forward, where they can see when their ideas are taken and used in the business. Because I honestly believe you can't take somebody's best work. They have to give it.
Yeah.
People have to want to give it. I describe it to people by saying, when on a Sunday evening, you're excited about going to work the following day, then it works. And if you think, oh no, I don't want to go in, I just don't want to go in, well, then there's something wrong. People are in the wrong job or the wrong business, or we've got the culture wrong, or whatever it is. But when people are actually excited, and when I see them on a Monday morning and they're smiling and having fun, yeah, that's inspired for me. That's inspirational culture.
I'm fully supportive because I used to work in telco and then more than 10 years in a marketing consulting business. And in marketing consulting, it's all about people. There is nothing else. There are just brains, spirits, and culture. And the value is created only in case of people are willing to create something. Otherwise, there is no business. And I fully agree that importance of people engagement, importance of people readiness to provide, to share, to give is the key success factor for any business. So, who inspires you personally, Kevin?
Oh, there are so many people. I'm here in my office and I'm just looking around. I probably have 300 books in here, all business books. Well, 95% of them are business books. And so I read and I read and I read, and I get inspired by lessons I learn and really interesting approaches that I see in different books. So in terms of leadership, there are some people I respect. I see business people who I think, yeah, smart guy, smart lady. But I don't have a mentor and I don't have a hero. My heroes are in sport. I played cricket, strange.
Yeah.
English game.
Yes.
It's like baseball, except we wear white. I played for my country, and I had an opportunity at the age of 18 to become a professional cricketer. And so my heroes are mostly sports people and people who go out and do special things.
We just touched sport a little bit. Let our viewers to discover this side of your life. You climbed to the top of some mountains. You hiked 2 poles already. Yes, so you crossed the Atlantic Ocean in a rowboat with a small team of crazy people, from my perspective. Why do you choose, let's say, such extreme and dangerous activities?
So where I grew up was in North Wales in the UK, and we have some mountains there. They're not big mountains, they're 1,000 meters. So they're not big mountains, but they have climbing faces, and we would go and climb. And from the age of about 12, and I just grew to love it, and I love the outdoors. And honestly, it just gradually escalated and got bigger and bigger hills and bigger mountains. And then, the poles came about because a very good friend of mine is a guy called Pete Goss. And Pete Goss is a single-handed round-the-world sailor. He entered the Vendée Globe race. So if you think I'm mad, you want to meet him. And he became very famous because he turned around back into a hurricane to pick another competitor out of the water when his boat sank. So Pete's a very special guy. And he said to me, hey, Kev, I'm thinking of sailing to the North Pole. And I said, but I thought the North Pole was frozen. He said, yes, it is. I'm going to build a land yacht and I'm going to sail over the ice. He said, but I need to walk there first to check it out. And I need some people with me. And that's literally what he said. You're crazy. Do you want to come? And I said, yeah, let's go. So we trained for a year or more. And then we walked to the North Pole, which was fantastic adventure, great fun. And, people don't realize the North Pole is just a frozen ocean. So it's always moving. Everything's moving around you. You're just walking over ice sheets. So that was a great adventure. And then, well, if you've walked to the North Pole, you might as well walk to the South Pole, mightn't you? So I told my family over dinner one night, and my son looked up, and he was about 17 then. And he said, well, you're not going without me this time. I said, okay, let's go. So we walked to the South Pole together. And that was great fun. And then, incredibly hard. our coldest day was minus 60 centigrade. Most people don't realize is that the South Pole is at altitude. It's actually at about 3,500 meters, I think. It's about 11,000 feet. And so you're dealing with altitude and cold and wind and. Anyway, so we did that together, which was great. And then he said, well, I haven't been to the North Pole. So I said, okay, we better go back then. So I went with him back to the North Pole. And then the ocean came because I was trying to think what to do next. And a good friend of mine is a professional explorer. And he'd rowed across the Atlantic. And I thought, it's crazy. It was a crazy thing to do. And he spoke to me one day and he said, Kev, you should row across the Atlantic because you'd love it. And I said, Pete, no chance. I said, I don't know anything about rowing, don't know anything about sea navigation. I don't know anything about it. He said, you'd love it. And I was speaking at a conference and somebody from the audience asked me, what's your next adventure? Because sometimes I use little stories from the adventures to make a business point about daring to dream. I said, well, I'm thinking of rowing across the Atlantic. And I wasn't. And I said, anybody want to come with me? And of course, 300 people laugh. And one guy said, yeah, I'll come with you. And afterwards, he came to me and said, were you serious? And I said, no. And he said, well, I think we could do it. And so we got talking and it kind of grew from there. And 2.5 years later, off we went. And we rowed from Spain to Antigua. On our first night, we got absolutely hammered in a storm. I genuinely didn't think we'd make it through the night. I was very frightened, and we all were, in this little tiny boat in the middle of the Atlantic. But we got through that, and we ended up reaching Antigua 23 hours faster than the previous world record. So we were the new world record holders.
Now let me underline,
and so
in 35 days, in a small rowboat, a small team, all together, still being France, which was, for me, the most inspiring fact.
Yes, so we'd seen other crews and we'd heard about how they prepared and how when it got very tough, because it gets very, very, very tough, how they fell apart as a team. And we said, no, we're going to stay together as a team, and that's what will let us win the race and win the world record. And so the motto on the boat was be kind. You're going to have a bad day. I'm going to have a bad day. You look after me and I'll look after you. We'll be kind together. So we also said we will start as friends and we will finish as friends. And we are still friends. On June the 12th next year, we set off to row across the Pacific. And if I look to my right here, 5 meters away from me is my new boat sitting outside my office.
How many days it's supposed to take if you want to be close to the record?
We're going on a new route because we're cheating. We're only going halfway.
Okay.
Because to go all the way from California to Japan is kind of 200 days. And I just can't afford to be away from my businesses for 200 days.
Clear.
So I think it'll be about 50 days. Little tiny rowing boat, 5 guys. You get to know each other very well. There are no secrets after that. No secrets.
I can imagine. So, I already asked you about your biggest challenges related to the business. So, from your list of extreme sports activities, what was the biggest challenge?
The South Pole was very, very tough. Physically incredibly tough. The Atlantic was challenging in a different kind of way because you never get to sleep. We never stop rowing. So we row 2 hours on, 2 hours off, 2 hours on, 2 hours off. And in your 2 hours off, you have to eat, take a wash, use the toilet, do some jobs on the boat, and try and get some sleep. So you maybe sleep for an hour. And the human body is not designed to sleep for an hour. By day 15, day 20, you really got crazy. And we were hallucinating. I was absolutely convinced my daughter was with me on the boat. I was talking to her. So we do go a bit loopy, go a bit mad.
It's crazy and impressive simultaneously. You're often using principles of sports achievement in your business practice. Actually, the whole book, Catching the Giant, is about this. Could you please elaborate, let's say, the most important from your latest journey?
So the Catching Giants book, which I'm delighted to say has just been shortlisted for Business Book of the Year, which is great. It's very exciting. That's the story of the row on one side of the page, and then the lessons and the principles and the parallels for life and for business on the other side of the page. And the most important ones are the dare to dream. Give yourself permission to imagine that you could become world champions. Because that's what we did. And people said to us, you're crazy. And I said to us, we're crazy. We're world champions. We don't know anything about this. But now we have to find out how to do it. So the first was to give ourselves permission to dare to dream about what was possible. The second part was about having a plan. And we ran it just like a business project. We had a project plan, and we had all kinds of activities which individuals shared, and we expected people to run it. You don't turn up on a Saturday when we're going out to train and you have not done your tasks. That is not acceptable. So it was about making sure that everybody did their part. We looked at every part of the project and said, where can we improve? What can we do better? We looked at the routing, because most people would route around bad weather. We said, no, we'll just go through it. We'll just go through it. Whatever it does, we're going through it. And, we're crossing the Atlantic in winter. So it's a very uncomfortable experience, but we'll just go through it. I think the discipline was another one that was really important. So I've just said we rode for 2 hours on and then 2 hours off. Mm-hmm. But we changed over. So I come out of the cabin and go into your seat and you go into the cabin. We do that 1 minute before the 2 hours, not 1 minute after or 2 minutes after or 5 minutes after. No, by the time we each had watches that went beep, and when it beeped, we were in the seat on the oars pulling. So it was the discipline and it was the perseverance. So we had some really bad weather days, and we knew from the radio, from the satellite phone, we would speak to control. Mm-hmm. We had an idea of what the other boats were doing, and we knew that they'd stop rowing because the weather was so bad. And we said, no, we keep rowing. Even if we only do 2 miles today, on a good day, we could do 100 miles. But even if we only do 2 miles today, it's 2 more miles. Whereas they don't row, they go backwards by 10 or 20 miles. So it was that determination. And it was the team spirit. Ultimately, it was what you said. We started as friends. We finished as friends. We challenged each other as friends. And we brought the whole thing together. And that story is all in Catching Giants.
I was sure that this kind of very strict accuracy was more a respect to your teammate, because if you start to be late for 1 minute, it's a kind of permission to be late for 2 minutes, and then it's an endless circle. I see that this race and competition was also very important for you, despite that you are not a professional sportsman, but you were really focused to win the race.
Yeah, sure. My family say, one, I'm the most impatient man in the world. I just want to do it now. Let's just do it now. And two, I'm the most competitive man in the world. I will compete on anything. But the thing, Alex, is I forget the following day. So I don't carry it in my head. When I played cricket, when I was playing a match, I was super competitive. But once the match finished, we go and have a beer together. And it's not important. It's sport. It's not... We don't carry it. Okay. And the following week, I couldn't remember whether we'd won or lost the previous week. But now we go out to win again. It's sport. It's entertainment. It's it's entertainment. When I look at what you are going through in Ukraine at the moment, that is of a different. We can't. I don't live there, and I can't imagine the stress and the heartache that's ongoing. So I say to people, keep the world in perspective. Sport is just sport. And I choose to do extreme adventures because I enjoy them. But I choose to do it. So I don't get stressed by it.
Yeah, I got it. And conversely, how do your management skills, your leadership skills help you in your extreme sport? I think that every journey is a long preparation period. So you should be well organized, structured, even to choose a good teammate. I think it's a challenge.
So we were a year before the next race, and one of our teammates dropped out for personal reasons. And so we're going through a big process now of how do you recruit somebody? How do you find somebody who you can share 50 days with under intense stress, because the demand of the ocean it's intensely stressful. But there's nowhere to hide. We are never more than a meter apart. You can't go away and take a break and we're there together. I say to people now, as I get older, I trust my gut a lot more than I used to. To answer your question about management skills, choosing the team is critical. But then it's about project management. And what I'm finding this time around is I'd hoped to give away most of the control to somebody else in the team and let them be the skipper, the captain, and let them run it. It's not happening. So I'm having to step in now and be the person who pushes again.
So to take a leadership role back. Wow.
And I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I want them to run it this time. I want to go along as a rower this time, not as a leader.
I know this feeling, mainly in business. Tell me, what are you thinking about when you are approaching to the shore?
For the Atlantic crossing, because we knew that we were ahead of the world record time, we were still rowing very, very hard right up until the line. In that race, we were thinking about how to beat the records. We knew our families were waiting for us on shore, and we knew there'd be a celebration when we landed, and we knew we'd eat some real food for the first time in 2 months. But we didn't think about it until we crossed that line. We didn't think about it. Once we crossed the line, it was kind of relief. It's huge degree of pride in having broken the world record. There's a huge degree of pride in the team, because we really were a team. We really forged a fantastic team spirit. Nobody had ever complained. There was not one word of complaint, even when we had very tough days. And we heard of other boats afterwards where people had said, I'm not rowing. I'm enough. And we didn't have any of that. If I'm honest, I was thinking about getting some space, getting some time to myself, because I had not been more than a meter away from 4 other men for 2 months, and it would be nice to just get some peace to just relax. We thought about sleeping, but we still couldn't sleep because that's what you said earlier on about your adrenaline keeps running.
Adrenaline, excitement. Yeah, I know this.
It took us a week to learn to sleep again.
Did you feel a kind of frustration that it is over?
Yeah, sadness. And I felt that more with the previous expedition, which was a big mountain called Carsten's Pyramid, which is in Papua. And it's one of the 7 summits, one of the highest 7 mountains in the world. And we'd climbed that, Matt and I, my son and I was 60, and I'd said to him, Matt, this will be my last climb. And when we came down, I was quite emotional because I thought, this is the last time I'm going to do this kind of adventure. And I've been doing it for 50 years. And it's the last time I'll do this kind of adventure. And it's the last time I'll do it with my son. So we walked out through the jungle. But we had a few days in the base camp. And we just talked, just 2 men. And I got to know him. And I've known him his whole life. And I got to know him, and he got to know me. And we were each a bit surprised by the other. We talked about business. And I said, well, it's given us a great lifestyle. And I'm very fortunate. I've made some wealth. And he said, so why do you still work so hard? He said, I don't understand. And I said, because I love what I do. I love building businesses. I love the challenge. But at that point, the sadness was about not doing another expedition with him.
Yeah.
And then a year later, we're rowing the ocean. So that was a non-retirement. and here we are now.
So one chapter is over, the new one will come.
Yeah, exactly.
You just mentioned it. You are running few businesses. We have discussed 5 right now. What is your daily routine? You are not an executive. You are a founder. Yes, you are a shareholder. Chairman, yes. But as far as I can... let's say, imagine a very active and involved chairman.
So when I sign up to these companies, and usually these days they invite me in, and I sign a contract to say I'm going to do 2 or 3 days a month with them. And it usually turns into 4 or 5 or 6 days a month with them, or 7 or 8 days a month when we're really busy. And so when you add that up times 5, it's more than a month of work to do in a month. So my daily routine is I get up about 6:30. I come in here, I check my emails, see what's happening in the world. I read the newspaper for half an hour with a cup of coffee, and then I go do some exercise. So I go in the gym, or I go out my bike, or I go for a walk, pulling tires. I have a harness where I pull some car tires, and I go and walk for a few miles.
Wow.
I come back.
Wow.
and check my emails again, take a shower, get dressed, and then the day starts. And I try to walk out of here. My drop dead time of walking out of the office is 10 o'clock at night. And last night it was 25 past 10 because I had something I wanted to finish, and I was back in here at 6:30 this morning. So I still work stupid hours.
And
But
you,
I enjoy
and
it.
you have
So
traveled a lot. So how you combine this, I will say, active travel with the daily routines? Yeah. Okay. So
we all have one of those, and
well,
thank goodness for companies like you. I'm in Portugal next week. Most of my staff will not know I'm not sitting here, or they don't know because I'm still completely visible.
yeah, clear.
And we never switch off, do we? That's the truth of it.
No, the reality.
Which is not good.
The reality is
It's not
Kyivstar
good.
in a full remote mode. We have plenty of employees who were not in office for the last year. This is the reality.
exactly.
We work from different countries because of the war, so it's the reality. We are here in Ukraine, so we are facing a full-scale war against Russia. They invaded our country, I told you today we had another horrible attack, missile attack on Kyiv, so it's really so. And maybe some piece of advice from your side, how we as Ukrainians can support ourselves mentally and physically in this very, very difficult situation, in the long-term path to the victory.
It's incredibly difficult. I can't imagine what it's like to be in my bed at night and wait for the air raid siren to go off. I can't imagine. I think the only thing we can rely upon is each other. And it is about remaining strong and trusting the people around you and keeping those relationships. The whole world pretty much is behind you. The whole world wants to see Ukraine successful. We're all here shouting for you, and we want to see you come through this well, but internally you have to stick together.
Kevin, thank you. Just one more question from my side. How old did this picture Dare to Dream?
That came from one of my businesses. So that we have a marketing company, and it's a young lady. She's based in Johannesburg, and I'd always said to her, "Dare to dream." She's an artist. She studied art at university, but she wanted to build a company, and so I gave her some advice. And with another colleague, we helped her to get going. The other colleague did all the work, in truth, and she built a great business. And she became a finalist in South Africa's Entrepreneur of the Year. But she said that sign there, sign there, that phrase is what she remembers from me. And she said, and she gave it to me on my birthday. And so she had it made and gave it to me and said, that's my thank you to you. And it's great. The only limitations in this world are those we put upon ourselves. So take them away.
Kevin, thank you very much for your inspiring engagement. Thank you very much from the Kyivstar team.
Very welcome. Yeah. It's an absolute pleasure to speak to you, and wish you and everybody in Ukraine health and success.
Дякую. Слава Україні!
Slava Ukraine!